So let's talk. We're going to have a conversation today, a kind of cool conversation. We're going to be talking about apologetics. Anyone know what apologetics is? One person knows what apologetics is. I'm in trouble today. So apologetics is how you defend something, generally your faith. And we're going to go through a series of simple things. We're not going to get too complicated today. This week we're going to do philosophy. Next week we're going to be working on science. And the following week we're going to be working on prophecy and history. And the reason it's been in my heart is I just feel like, we as Christians, we have this connection with God, but we don't know what we believe. We don't know what we believe. We know who we believe, but we don't know what we believe. I think it's important, especially in a society, and I invite skeptics and atheists and Christians all alike to come be part of this conversation, to be able to have a conversation. And sometimes it's not just saying, I believe and that's enough. It's the person in front of you may be asking the question, well, give me something so I can become interested in what you believe. The purpose I'm going to focus on is two questions, and they're not real deep, but I think they matter. Is there a God, number one, and does he love me? So we're going to get this whole thing we're opening up on philosophy is there a God, and does he love me? I want to draw reasonable conclusions, logical conclusions, and answer a question, am I possibly loved? And I have to prepare the heart because the goal is to have a reasonable conversation. So a lot of times when you hear this, you'll hear the philosopher come up, and if he's a Christian, he'll slam the atheists, he'll slam the skeptics, and he's just making everyone feel stupid. Then you go over to the atheist channel or the skeptic channel, and they're slamming the Christian or the person of faith or making them feel stupid. That's not a conversation. That doesn't bring anybody closer to anybody or even to the Lord, especially when it's come from the Christians. The best thing that I can offer you is respectful investigation, which allows me, when I'm talking to you, to be wrong. I can learn something when I'm talking about something that I'm so sure of. I can be humble enough in front of an atheist or a skeptic or even another Christian that I can be wrong. And why can I do that? Why can I afford myself to be wrong? Because I believe in a living God. See, if I'm just trying to sell you a religion, I have to give you all my points and beat you down until you completely understand what I understand and you're completely following what I am, and that's just an occult. You see, my job is to give you a reasonable faith, to give you the instance of maybe considering that there's a God out there, and because I know that my Savior is risen is what I'm believing, and because I know that my King created the whole universe, that's his job now to connect with you. My job is to live a life, to maybe open your intellect, to open your heart just enough to consider that maybe I was created. Maybe I have purpose, maybe I have value, and maybe I'm loved. And then you know what? It's your job, God. You're resurrected, you're King and Creator, and you're either there or you're not. But from this point of view, where I feel my faith is very reasonable, and I know him, I know that if I can get someone to be sincere and to have a conversation, I know God will do his work. Ultimately, my objective is to open the possibility of a God who exists and a God who loves. The rest is up to him, right? And I trust him to make the connection authentic, not fabricated by me. Even as a Christian, I could fabricate the connection. I don't want to do that. I just want to open your heart to the possibility of a king who created you, hung on a cross for you, resurrected, and he can do his authentic work. I'm going to I want to shape this because I feel like before I give a teaching, I should prepare the heart, right? A lot of times we go into this teaching and the heart gets prepared at the end. Oh, did I not dismiss the kids? I didn't. I should get fired. If you have guys any kids going down to the children's church, feel free. It's ready. We have our first grade through kindergarten through sixth grade is downstairs. And please, if you could pick them up by 12:30 at the latest because we have the Spanish ministry coming in. I'm sorry. My teacher just came up and said, you're really in trouble. Pretty much just got a detention in school and possibly an expulsion. So the utmost respect that I have an appreciation for an atheist professor that I knew. I was 1 year a Christian, my first year at college. And I went and I took this class called Early World Civilization. And I realized very early on that early world civilization, what they were teaching was anti-monotheism. And monotheism is the belief in one God. Like I believe that Jesus, we believe in one God. And it was really talking about how in nature, how in history, how in our future, this belief in one God has really been a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem until we kind of get away from it. I was like, wow, and this guy was an atheist professor, not just the kind of atheist who says, I kind of believe. He had the evolution handbook, I mean it, right on his desk. So like when I went in, the first thing I noticed as a new Christian, how to convert a Christian, with evolution and 3 steps or something. And I read that and I was like, oh man, I am under attack. So I realized that God was under attack, and miraculously, as I'm in this class and the first kind of contention comes up as he begins speaking, he's like, Peter had a different religion than Paul, and Jesus had a different religion, and they had 3 different religions, and, the Christians are trying to combine them into one, and he said, and Peter and Paul had this sharp, contention with one another. And it just so happened, as a brand new Christian who knew nothing about apologetics, who knew nothing about science, history, any of that, the Bible, who knew nothing really about the Bible at that time, I just happened to be reading the end of 2 Peter the night before. I went to this class, and I raised my hand and I said, "Sir, I was just reading last night that Peter said, and my beloved brother Paul, who has taught you these exact same things, and the unlearned twist to their own destruction." And he was like, "Really? It says that?" I was like, yeah. I read it last night. And it wasn't like, "Got you." He was like, and he took a step back. And he just kind of listened to what I said. And he was teaching something else on Matthew 24 later. And I raised my hand and I had another contention about what he was saying. And he actually called me up to the board and he said, "Hey, Steve's saying this. And what I want to show here is this guy was open, an atheist, to have the conversation with a Christian." And I want to say how much I appreciate professors who are skeptics or atheists who treat Christians as they have a reasonable faith instead of mocking and making fun of them, and allow the conversation to come. Because really, when you allow the conversation to come, it means that you truly believe what you believe. See, when you have to shut someone down, like you're stupid because you're a Christian or you're an idiot because you're an atheist, that really means that I have to make you a demon, whether you're a Christian or an atheist, in order for me to be right, because I really don't have faith in what I believe. But I know my God is real. So it's okay for me to allow you to be an atheist and a skeptic, because God's going to work all that out. I just have to live the truth and tell the truth, and then it's his job. So I had so much respect, for him. And then we had our final thesis paper, and you guys know a final thesis paper, that was the biggest part of the grade for this class. And we had 3 questions we had to choose from, and each one I knew I disagreed. So I took the 3 questions, I chose all 3 of them, I wrote everything that he taught that year, and I wrote why I disagreed with him. And I said, that is an F-. I just said, that's like a negative grade. I'm getting like a negative 20 on it. So I just handed it in there, came back to get my paper, A+. A+. Atheist, professor, disagreed, paid attention in his class, had good conversation, never arrogant, never high-minded, just good conversation. The sincere conversation opens up an avenue for truth to rise to its proper place. We're just yelling at each other. We don't get anywhere with truth. Truth is not opinion. Truth is something that we have to allow. We have to prepare the heart. If we truly believe that Jesus is the risen Savior, then he's a part of this too, not just you. It's not all on me. So next year, he has hundreds of people come through his class. I was in him for like a half a semester. And I was sitting in the lunchroom the next year, and I noticed him because he's a professor. So you're going to notice your professor, right? He came across the lunchroom, and he remembered me. And he remembered my name. He didn't just say, "Hey." He said, "Hey, Steve, how are you doing?" And what that meant is the way that I conducted myself by happenstance as a young Christian, and God giving me those answers the night before, I was able to speak into his life. He's able to recognize that that's somebody, a Christian I can respect. That's a Christian I can have a conversation with. That's a Christian. I don't know what happened to his life afterwards. That's at least he's open now to the next Christian who comes along, which could be who? It could be you, right? Because we carried ourselves in such a way where we weren't like intolerant, we weren't like arrogant, we weren't like, "You're an idiot, I have to demonize you to be right." I don't ever have to do that. Never. I just have to listen to you, share my heart, share what I know to be true, and God has to do his job. How this looks in real life when you're wrestling with your faith, and some of you guys brought up in a church, maybe you're wrestling with your faith. I was with a valedictorian, right, of his Christian school, and I was the keynote speaker. So as a keynote speaker, I had to meet all the kids that were in the school and get a little knowledge about them. So in my keynote, I can kind of, poke a little fun at them or whatever. And I remember I get to the valedictorian and we're talking, and the valedictorian says to me, "I got to do the speech, and I don't know if I believe in God." I'm like, wow. I don't know what to say. I was like, wow, that's heavy. So, I could have just beat him up with the Bible and gave him 50 reasons he should believe or whatever. And the Lord spoke through me, and I want to speak this. If you're even brought up in a church, or you're a skeptic, you happen to be watching online, or you just happen to be in a church, it's okay. I said, don't worry about it. I said, the only thing I ask of you is this. What you ask and what you seek, do it with a sincere heart. Don't come in with an opinion and a predestined opinion that, I was brought up as a Christian and I'm just tired of it, it's not. Or I'm just going to be an atheist, so I'm going to prove it is. Because you know what? That's not seeking truth. Be sincere. Have a sincere heart. And that was the best thing I could have given that kid, because when I gave him the ability to have a sincere heart, instead of beating him up with my 50 facts of why he should be a Christian, which would just harden the heart even more, it opened the heart to the possibilities to consider and communicate with a God who can actually fix the problem. Because this guy can't fix the problem. That guy can. Sincere questioning challenges the heart to honesty over opinion. The world is full of opinions, man. We need honesty. Sincerity challenges the heart to honesty over opinion. One time when we were first saved, And so my house before we were saved was the party house. My brother and I, our garage was everyone came and drank and smoked and did all the bad stuff. That's where it all happened. So I get saved first, and then about a year later, he gets saved, and we're kind of sitting in the garage, and this one kid comes in. So it's kind of an overlap. We have Christians that are hanging out, and we still have the party crowd hanging out. So it's kind of like they're kind of all trying to feel each other out. And this one kid comes in, and the evolution comes up, and the one kid starts going, "It's a fact! Evolution is a fact! It's a fact!" And my brother's like, "Well, I'd love to have a conversation with you about that." Because although my brother looks like a Harley Davidson, kind of somewhere between Duck Dynasty and an Amish guy, you know what I mean? But the fact is he really loves science. He's a tough guy, man. He's a real tough dude, but he loves science. And, it's like the little nerdy thing he hides that nobody knows about until now. So, but the idea is that he's trying to have a conversation. This guy, "It's a fact!" And you would think, my brother's just trying to have a conversation, but me, only being a year old in the Lord and knowing my brother, I'm like, "Oh, this guy's going to get knocked out." There's going to be a fight, But that's the exact opposite heart, right? So atheist professor willing to have a conversation with a kid who really knew basically nothing about his faith at that point. Two people trying to have a conversation that can't have a conversation because it's the Christian going, "God just is. He just is." Where's the conversation? Where's the ability for truth to rise to the top? Where's the open, possible heart that God can do his actual work? You shut the door by yelling and screaming in someone's face, just like the atheist was shutting the door on any kind of conversation that my brother was trying to have with him. And I still to this day can't believe my brother didn't knock him out. But but is Christian arrogance or skeptic arrogance or atheist arrogance, that's not what's ever going to bring us to truth. Humility, conversation, playing with truth, allowing the conversation, allowing to grow closer to each other through it. So sincere conversation and sincere questioning will open us up to an aggressive search for truth. I want to remember this phrase, an aggressive search for truth over an aggressive search for happiness. Because to be honest, we're Americans. And even just in our DNA as humans around the world, we're really on an aggressive search for happiness. That's what we're out for. We want to be happy. I'm on an aggressive search that if I can be happy, then that's what I'll follow. And really, what we should be on is an aggressive search for truth. And I have bad news. Truth is not always going to make you happy. Truth is going to challenge you. It's going to forge you. It may make your life quite miserable. It made Jesus' life quite miserable. But there's always eternity and peace and connection with God in the end of it. So we have to switch what we're aggressive about. If we're aggressive for happiness, we're going to find whatever means. And if that's Christianity, you'll back that up. If that's atheism or skepticism, you'll back that up. But if you're looking for truth, truth will rise to the top and we'll agree, well, we just can't deny that. Happiness is temporal. Sometimes you're happy with your wife, right, Ed? All the time? That's a good answer, brother. You didn't say that in the first service. No. He learned it. He got yelled at in between. So. Brandy, you're always happy with me? Sometimes we're really happy with each other. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes I have good moments. Sometimes I'm really angry. Sometimes I'm really up, and sometimes I'm really down. It's temporal, but truth is eternal. It doesn't change. Jesus said heaven and earth is going to pass away, but my words will not pass away. Truth can be quite uncomfortable, so we got to prepare the heart for it before we even get there. How do we prepare the heart? Well, this is easy. I prepared your heart. We're a basic man like me, having fun teaching about philosophy. You ready? I'm a basic things. I have a basic IQ. I have a basic education. I'm a basic pastorship. I have a basic life. I have basic finances. I have wins in my life, losses in my life, just like yours. Basic me and basic you, learning to communicate and search out truth together instead of happiness. And the wonderful thing about truth is once you come to a truth, happiness is a fruit and follows behind it. Is it a thing, truth, or is it a person? What I want to present is that truth is reasonable, it's possibly logical, but from a very sincere heart condition. We have a couple demonstrations I'm going to walk you guys through, and as I walk you through these, I'm going to start with this guy over here. And Laurel said that it looks somewhere between Officer Stanko and Squidward. And I said, I'm definitely using that in a sermon. And she said, don't use my name. I said, forget that. We're all in here. So in this canvas, we can see two things. There's negative space, which is the dark, right? So that's all the negative space where nothing exists. And then we see the occupied space, which is Squidward Stanko, right? So what we end up here is this is what the naturalist would say, and I use these kind of examples, and we're going to build from example to example. This is a very basic example. This is the occupied space. This is the negative space. I don't know what's in the negative space, so is it fair to me for me to say that the negative space does not exist, and I can only see the occupied space, which is all of you, and that's me. We can just see each other, so that's all that exists. And everything in the negative space doesn't exist, but it would be foolish in this example to say that because we know there's a canvas here, although it's black and we can't see it. We know there's something holding all the occupied space together. We know that if we really look at this, although it's dark and it's called the negative space, there's something here supporting everything in the occupied space. And if I took away the negative space, the occupied space would disappear as well. And that's how God is. And it's a very simple example to say, look, just because I can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And we're going to walk it through on this example here. And I stole this one. This one is, I think you can look this one up online. It's called Flatland. Some of you guys may be familiar with it, but I thought it's so good at explaining God in a way that's understandable for a basic man like me and maybe a basic person like yourself. So we have occupied space and we have negative space, right? We're going to talk about dimensions. I'm going to walk you through the dimensions so that way we can make the point, all right? So can anyone yell out and tell me what dimension that is? That's a point, but what dimension is it? It is not one. It is called the zero dimension. Very good. Okay. It's a single pot on a line. But, so we're going to call that the zero dimension. It's just a spot on a line. But then we're going to go to, then you just said it, the first dimension. Very good. And for it to be the first dimension, we have to draw one line. So now we have a length. So zero dimension is just a point. Everyone understand that? First dimension is a line. Everyone got that? Okay, so now we're going to go to the second dimension. So the second dimension looks like this. So now we have our zero dimension and our first dimension. Pretty simple. Now we're going to add a height to our length. And now we have something that's two-dimensional. Okay, so now we have when it's explained, they mostly explained it with a right angle because it's easier to build the third dimension after it. But any line, anything could make it into the second dimension. Any intersecting or connecting line. So now we're in the second dimension. So now we're going to go to the third dimension. Everyone following me so far? Okay. Third dimension is now we're going to have a height, we're going to have a width, but we're going to have something called depth. So we're still in the second dimension, but all of a sudden I'm going to create you. So now I've gone ahead and I've given something into that. Did I do that right? How did we do that? What, did I do it? Yeah, okay, or something like that. So now we've given something volume, right? So now we're in the third dimension because you guys have volume. I'm not flat, right? You're not flat. We have something also in a third dimension. So now we're going to talk, what did I do here? I forgot you. That's what it was. Okay, so that was probably irritating somebody. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension, which we don't know. We're looking into the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh dimension. Paul alludes to the fact that he was up to the seventh heaven. He alludes to that in one of his Gospels. So I think he saw a little bit more than we know. So this is how we're going to explain. So as long as we understand all this, I'm going to erase this, and we're going to explain how the fourth dimension that we don't know speaks to the third dimension. So we're going to go to a place that's two-dimensional, and remember, if we have two-dimensional, it means it's flat, so we're going to call this place Flatland, okay? Who wants to go to Flatland? You're in three-dimension. Who wants to go to the second dimension? Kayla, okay? Here we go. We got Kayla. I'm going to put a big K on your head, okay? I'm going to say hello, Kayla. Now she's no longer have hair even or anything. You're just a pancake, very flat right there. Who wants to go to Flatland? You want to go? Smile so I know which twin you are. Hannah, okay, I don't know. They look exactly the same, okay? It's very difficult. But, so you know, they have dimples on opposite sides, so if you get them to smile, you'll know who they are. Okay, so Hannah's going to Flatland too. Now, the interesting, they're girls, right? So Kayla and Hannah are talking in Flatland, and they're like, hey, let's hang out. You know what we should do? It's an all-nighter, right? We're going to watch TV on Dad's big 70-inch TV, big flat screen TV, right? And you guys are watching Hallmark, right? So you're watching a big Hallmark, right? Because, it's fall. You want kissing, you want snow, you want winter. There, you're on Hallmark. A little thing here. Okay. So everyone so far in the third dimension, you completely understand what's happening in the second dimension, right? They're just flat people watching a flat screen TV, right? There's Kayla, we know who she is. There's Hannah. We have a complete concept because we are a whole dimension above the second dimension. All right. Now I'm going to do something. Who likes baseball? Good catch. Mark was going to get pegged in the head if he missed that. So we're going to take this three-dimensional object, okay? Everyone can see it's round, right? It's got volume to it. It's got depth. And we're going to take this three-dimensional object, and we're going to put it into the second dimension, and we're going to understand everything that's happening because we're in the third dimension, and we completely understand what's happening in the second dimension. And then I'm going to make my point. So just stay with me. So as I take this, and Kayla and Hannah are hanging out watching Hallmark, I start to put the third-dimensional object through the second dimension. And as I do that, what's going to happen to a three-dimensional object? It's going to become what? Flat. It's going to become flat. And as it becomes flat, so the tip of it just hit. And as the tip hit, this little dot appears. And Kayla goes, hey, Hannah, did you leave something on top of the TV? It's like, no, I see a dot. And then I start to push a little bit more of the ball through. And it's getting more and more flat, which means it's getting bigger, right? Very good. So it's getting bigger. And he says, oh, man, you should really clean up here. It's kind of becoming a mess, you know? And then we start to push more of it through. And as we start to push more and more of that ball through, it's becoming more and more flat because it's three-dimensional becoming two-dimensional. And as it becomes two-dimensional, it becomes this huge thing. And after a while, the people in the second dimension are going, what in the heaven is happening here? All we know is this little dot is becoming huger and huger and huger, and we have no concept. It doesn't match any of our laws, and we can't even understand it. But everyone in the third dimension completely understands what happened. We took a three-dimensional object, we put it into a two-dimensional plane, and it became flat. Here's how this works with God. We are three-dimensional, and we stand here. And because we're egocentric, we say there can't be a dimension beyond us. But we can clearly see that even though they're two-dimensional and could not understand the third dimension, they can completely, there's something crazy going on that they can't understand. And because God is so unexplainable, because he's all in the negative space, we have a whole universe that's full of a vacuum out there, things that we can measure, things that we can't measure. You know, we are spinning on an earth that is going 1,000 miles an hour right now, like this, on a 23-degree axis. And here's a scary thought. You ready? There's either no God out there, and you're spinning 1,000 miles an hour on a 23-degree axis around a huge sun that can melt you at any second if one thing goes off. Here's another scary thought. There is a God out there, and he created it all, and you're spinning 1,000 miles an hour on an earth that he created on a 23-degree axis, and he came down from that dimension, the negative space. He came into your dimension to hang on a cross and explain to you everything that's going on and that he loves you and he created you. And you sit here and we say, we don't care about the fourth dimension because we're three-dimensional and we're the only thing that matters. Because we can only see each other, there can be nothing else behind me, so I'm egocentric, so that's it. It all ends here and only what I can see. Wouldn't that be silly for them to say that? All this miracle, all this outside doesn't exist, although we're seeing it and we can't understand it, and since we can't understand it, it can't be. And that's how we treat God, as three-dimensional. We say out there beyond what happens in our dimension can't possibly lead, but yet the evidence points to otherwise. As God does so many miracles, as we hang on in nothingness in the universe, and there's more laws and everything that we can't possibly measure with our mathematics, our science, our history, or even our prophecy. So we come to a philosophy on this. I don't have to see it to conclude it exists. The universe is vastly negative space, but yet it exists. The conclusion is that me believing in a God who created all of it is reasonable to suggest, possibly logical that there is a creator, but the question is, does he love me? Now, Paul was a very learned guy. Paul was one of the most learned guys of his time. He was learned in religion. He was learned in philosophy. He was highly intelligent. And I want to take an excerpt from what he wrote in 1 Corinthians. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligent of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has God made foolish the wisdom of this world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness what was preached to save those who believe. And he says, the Jews demand a sign, the Greeks chase after wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified. And the point that he's making here is God is actually choosing very foolish and very basic things to confound all the wisdom that we have. Logical conclusions. So I'm going to do a demonstration here for you guys. Anybody like Legos? Anybody like Legos? Do you like Legos? That's cool. So this is the awesome Lego right here. See that? Nice little cool car. This is the first bag. I'm going to dump it into this bucket. Got another bag. Oh, we even have directions. Directions, those are always important. We got a whole nother bag in here. Dump those in there. Even comes with its own stickers. Stickers matter, right? Anything else in it? There it is. Okay. So you can see there's nothing in this box, right? Box is empty. Just feel like America's Got Talent, like I'm going to do it. So I'm going to shake this up, all right? I'm going to put it back in here. I'm going to shake this up. Oh, lost that piece. That guy matters. Blow a little cold on it, a little heat, centrifugal force, make it happen. All right, if I was to shake this up for maybe a million or 2 years, million years, billion years, and then if I was to let it sit here for a whole bunch of time, right? Do you think when I had it back that I'd be able to pull out a perfectly created car out of that box? Why not? It just won't do it by itself? What if the conditions were perfect? That's a lot to ask though, right? Well, let's see what we got in the box. Wouldn't you believe it? It's a perfectly created car. Oh, look. And there's a little man in there too. So you guys are all looking at me like, obviously, it's a magic trick. It couldn't happen, right? We know that I switched the box when I brought it over here because we know that this box is still a bunch of junk, right? Anybody want a Lego car? Brandon, my 20-year-old friend. Hold on, ready? Here we go. You're 20 years old, kid. All right. So here's the idea with that car that works, right? My son Duncan put that together. I obviously bought two. I bought one that I was going to do nothing with but shake around. But I gave all the pieces to my son Duncan, and he created, he manipulated, he got in there. He put it together. He used his mind. It had value and purpose to him. It's a toy. And he said, I shaped this thing, Dad, look. And I took this one, and I just said, if I shake it up long enough without anything manipulating it, that anything happen to it will ever have value, will ever have purpose, will ever become something. So I use this demonstration to say, if you look at even anything, like my son likes Legos, so I use Legos. But if you're with a car guy, use an engine. If you're with someone who's in IT, use a computer. You know, you look at your thumbprint, make it personal. Look at your eyeball. Do you think this happened by accident? Is it reasonable? And is it possibly logical to say that this eyeball has an absolute purpose and just wasn't shaken in the universe for enough years, or it actually created itself to do what it does? But maybe there's an inventor who took time, like my son did, to put that together so that it had a purpose and it had a value. So to answer the question, is it possible that there could be a God? And is it possible that he could love me? Cars, watches, birthday cakes, eyeballs, fingerprints, it really doesn't matter what you use. You can use anything in the demonstration. Everything that you see before you has been created with purpose and value. It is reasonable and possibly to logically believe that I am not an accident, therefore I may have value and I may even have purpose. Philosophy, is it reasonable? Possible. Scripture, Proverbs 1:7 says this, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Now that's written from some people who have some pretty deep wisdom. And it's not saying that like, hey, you know, I want to be scared of God. You know, at first it's like saying, oh my God, I've come to the possibility to just consider the fact that I'm not just hanging on this ball, spinning 1,000 miles an hour, 23-degree axis, have these eyeballs, these fingerprints, this ability to reproduce, this ability to love, feel, get angry, cause war, make peace, all of this stuff, and it's all inside of me, and it's all just by accident, just by shaking a bunch of Legos up with some heat, with some cold, with some centrifugal force. And to sit there and say, you know what? That's kind of scary to think there might be a creator who made me and I'm not paying attention to him. And that fear begins wisdom that maybe I should connect with that creator. And when I connect with that creator, it's no longer horror movie that I'm scared of God. It's I'm in awe of you, God. And this is fantastic. And let me know you more and show me more about this universe that you made. And it's possible. And I just want to say it's reasonable. Because what you're taught is what your faith is unreasonable. And you're shouted down. You're an idiot. You know, evolution is a fact. It's a fact. There is no God. But everything that we've presented here from a basic person with a basic IQ is saying it's reasonable what you believe. In fact, on this side, it becomes logical to me. The conclusion is that I'm connecting real dots. If there is a creator, possibly, then I am a creation. And if I am a creation, I must have some purpose, like that car that Duncan did. It was a toy. And purpose gives this, it gives value to the person. So maybe, just maybe, I am loved. Am I loved? So I was buying this big old truck. And I was a carpenter before I was a pastor, and I had this humongous truck, and I paid a lot of money for it, and we, if you're gonna be a carpenter, you gotta have a big truck. You pull up to the job site, you need a little respect. So, and I went in and I figured that I was gonna, I was prayed all up, and I was meeting with the salesman, and he was the owner of this big conglomerate for selling cars, and I was like, I'm gonna convert him to the Lord. That's my thing that I'm gonna do. So I went there to convert him to the Lord, and I was starting to share my faith, and he goes, look, I kind of know, Steve, what you're saying. You're a Christian, you have faith. I have my own set of faith, but to me, God is just like getting a soda. I go there, and if I want a vitamin water, I can get a vitamin water. If I want an iced tea, I can get an iced tea, a coconut water, Mountain Dew, Pepsi water, Coke. It doesn't matter. You can just pick whatever one you want. And I thought I was going to convert this guy, and whatever happened after he said that, I got all clammed up. I didn't know what to say, and I ended up buying the really expensive truck, and he ended up not caring about my faith. So that was the end result of it. But it really bothered me when he said that because I didn't really have a good answer for him or something logical to share with him. And he just said, God can be whatever I want him to be. And I want to do a demonstration. I'm going to have my friend Dave and Sarah come up. And we're going to do a demonstration to kind of challenge that. And I'll show you how to challenge that in two different ways, just to get someone to think, not to be right. Dave, Sarah. Hey, Dave. Sarah? Dave, I was starting my basketball team up again this year, and I was really hoping that you'd play center for us because
I'm down here.
I don't really need you to score. I just need you to block shots because I need a 6'10" male center.
Well, I'm like a 5'1" female.
Yeah, Dave, I don't know what you're going through in your personal life, but I'm just like the guys on the team, they said, can you get Dave Knob to play with us? He's a 6'10" male center. And I know if I get you on the... Dave, just let me finish the sales pitch. We just want you on the team, brother. So, all right. Sarah, listen.
Dave.
Sorry I couldn't help you.
I was really trying to get Dave on the team, but so I can't get a center on my team, so I'm looking for maybe a female 5'1" 3/4" point guard. So do you think you might be interested in coming on our squad just to run the point, bring the ball up? I probably got to move someone over to center because I don't know what's going on in Dave's life, but what do you say?
Yes, but I'm the 6'10" center. I can't handle the ball.
Listen, you guys are having all kinds of identity problems, and I understand that, but I'm just trying to get a basketball team together. I'm very simply asking you if you would be my 5'1" 3/4" female point guard on my squad this year. We're one player short, and I already lost Big Dave.
Just not built that way. I'm the center.
Listen, I don't think you guys understand. I want you to be 6'10", male, and a center.
But I'm not.
It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't even matter what you are. It matters what I want you to be. And you. It's ridiculous with you. I want a 5'1" 3/4" female point guard on my team. That's what I want, and that's what I say. So if I say it, and if I say it enough times, it becomes true.
Nope.
I just want to say that I'll cancel the whole season. I'll send everybody home from church. If you don't accept the fact that you are a 6'10" male center that I need on my squad.
I mean, you can, but I can't.
Thank you. We're finally
not.
getting somewhere. That's all we needed. We agree. And you over there, Big Dave just said he'd be the center for my team, so you can go back to your seat. Thank you very much. So you guys can see exactly what we're going for here. That they didn't applaud you in the first service, just so you know. It's DNA, and there's nothing I could do about my height. But you can see what we're going for. He was just saying, God can be whatever I want God to be. And we can see no matter how much I told Sarah that she was a dude, you could check her out. She's not a dude. Sorry. And I could tell Dave that he was a 5'1" woman, and his wife will attest to you that is not the case. And no matter if I want it to be true or I push it to be true, it's never going to be true because it's just not truth. And if we're on an aggressive search for happiness, we'll make whatever true we want to be true. But if we're on aggressive search for truth, we'll let truth just be truth. And I'll step back and say, I don't get to pick who God is. I know since the dawn of time there's a hole inside of mankind. I know in every culture, in every continent, in every corner of the earth, there is a deep desire to connect. That's why we create religion. Whether we're worshiping statues or we're worshiping wood or deities that don't exist or worshiping ancestry or whatever it is that we're worshiping, we're trying to fill a hole that only the actual creator is who he is can fill. And Jesus said this in John 8. He said, you know what? I am that I am. And he was hearkening back to when Moses said, who should I say sent me? He said, tell him I am that I am sent you. And he's calling himself God in the flesh in that moment. And the Jews understood what he was saying because they picked up stones to kill him for blasphemy. And what Jesus was saying at that moment was this: you guys are searching all over the universe to make God whatever you want him to be, whoever you want him to be. But the fact is, I've come here and I am who I am, whether we like it or not. But I will tell you, he knows your name, and once you know his, you'll get to like it. Because not everybody's going to hang on a cross for you. The God you don't believe in, the ancestral religion, the answer's right there. The creator of the universe, who came down into the third dimension because we just couldn't understand it and said, let me explain it all to you. I made you. I love you. You got a serious sin problem, and I'm going to fix it by taking all the punishment for you. Take it or leave it because I'm here, and I know your name. And we say, I'd rather you be a Coca-Cola. I'd rather you be a water. That's what I want you to be today. And you know what, man? God ain't going to force you. He did the cross. He did his part. We have to do ours. He said in John 12:32, if I be lifted up from this earth, I will draw all men to me. Every tongue, every tribe, every nation. And he said, if you lift me up from this earth, I will draw all men to me. So in our lives, when we're not arrogant about what we believe, when we're willing to have a conversation, we're willing to just spark someone's interest by maybe a silly demonstration of flatland or a dumb canvas with Squidward sitting on it, Or maybe, even saying to the person when I was sitting there as he was selling me the car, and he was saying, well, God can be whatever you want. I could have said to him, hey, listen, are you a 7-foot African-American woman? And he would have said, no, I'm a 5'5" male white guy. And maybe that would have been the conversation that could have started it. And I said, well, just like I can't tell you who you are just because I want you to be something, you can't just tell God who he is either. And what I asked for the skeptic, what I asked for the atheist, and even the Christian, is just to prick your heart enough to ask God his opinion. And it's his job to do the rest. What's the conclusion? Possibly science, mathematics all around you. There's science all around you. There's mathematics all around you. There's history and there's prophecy. And maybe they're all pointing to a cross. And maybe that's God's philosophy on loving you. There's so much philosophy that we just toss everywhere and just pick what you want. But maybe that's God's philosophy on loving you. There's 4 people much more educated than me that you guys should check out. J. Warner Wallace. He wrote a book called Cold Case Christianity. And he's a leading forensics detective. And the only reason he was a total atheist, and the only reason he wrote this book called Cold Case Christianity is because someone said, hey, Jesus is a really smart guy. He said, Jesus is a smart guy. Let me go listen to him. Let me read up on him. And as he read up on the resurrection of Christ, he started applying all of his forensics, which is when you go into someone who was murdered and you have to decide, was this, who did it, who done it? And he applied all of his forensics to this death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And at the end of it, being an atheist, he said, you know what? I've applied it all, and I've come to the conclusion that the resurrection must have happened. And he became a Christian and wrote a book called Cold Case Christianity. I've read it to my kids, totally awesome. Lee Strobel, many of you have heard of the movie Case for Christ. It's also a book. He was a legal analyst for the Chicago Tribune. How did he come around to it? He's an atheist. He wanted nothing to do with God. He ended up with a crazy wife who fell in love with Jesus, who acted like me. What it was? A crazy wife. Wouldn't shut up about Jesus. Oh my God, shut up. Stop talking about Jesus. I'm so tired of hearing it. Can we go back to our life? We got money, we got success, we got everything. I'm a legal analyst, celebrated for the Chicago Tribune. You're ruining everything with this Jesus. Give me that Bible, because I'm going to go through it and I'm going to prove that it doesn't exist. And as he went to do that, he applied all of his legal. He applied it all to the Bible, and he came we came out with this conclusion: the resurrection must have happened. I need to accept Christ in my life too. I'm going to pause just to let you guys go downstairs, the Spanish ministry. If you have kids down in children's church, you do have to go grab them right now, just because the Spanish ministry will be in 4 minutes. And if you guys could just go down and open up that side door there, okay? Thanks, guys. Frank Turek is another one who has a great website called crossexamine.org. That's Frank Turek. He's just quick answers. And Bobby Conway has something called the 1minuteapologist.com. I like the 1minuteapologist.com because it's 1 minute. And I'm ADD. I can't pay attention to anything if you don't have me in the first 20 seconds, I'm gone. But you just Google any question, you go on that website, you put in your question, and the 1 minute apologist comes up. And it's just really good answers for really tough questions. So it's reasonable for anyone, that's all I want to say. Possibly logical for a human with an aggressive search for truth. Although the math and the science and the history and the prophecy point my heart ever to my Creator, my greatest testimony is this: Beside all that, I know him. That's my greatest testimony. I know the king who created me. Of all the math I could throw at you, of all the science, of all the history, of all the, go do apologetics, but of all of that, the greatest testimony I have is that I know him. In Ecclesiastes chapter 12, you'll read, you know the song, a time to live, time to die. No one, yeah, okay, good, thank you. So that comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 12. It's about backslidden King Solomon coming back to the Lord, where, he's lived completely for God and then lived completely against God. He's completely served God and completely rebelled against God. And as he reads and as he shares all of his wisdom, because he's had all the women in the world, he's had all the money in the world, all the power, all the greatness. He's had all godliness, and he's also had godlessness. He's lived on every side of any corner of the earth that you possibly could. He totally lived faithful, and he totally lived unfaithful. And at the end of his book, he says in 12:13, the conclusion is this: fear God and keep his commandments. He came to that revelation that there's nothing he didn't taste. There's nothing he didn't touch. There's no heaven that he didn't worship or feel either. He felt it all on both sides. And when it really came down to the matter, he sat there and he said, you know what? It comes down to this: fear God and keep his commandments. Yes, there is a God. And there is a God, and he loves me to a cross for my sin. And the answer is that I know him and he knows me.